Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking some absolutely fascinating insights on how our deepest behaviors are formed, and more importantly, how we can actually reprogram them for success. If you've ever caught yourself reacting terribly in a stressful moment and thought, why am I like this? Well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get into it.
So I want to start off with a massive question. Who is really controlling your reactions? Are you actually reacting to the world in the present moment? Or is there some invisible childhood script just running on autopilot in the background? You know, we love to think we're fully in the driver's seat, making conscious choices all day long. But as we'll see from the source material today, that's kind of not the case.
All right, moving into Section 1, the unguarded gates of childhood. To figure out why we react the way we do, we've got to look back at those really early years of our psychological development.
When we talk about behavior, we're really talking about traits and reactions that are essentially pre-kept. They're subconsciously acquired from our early interactions with family and society. Think about it. When we're born, we instantly start interacting with our environment, right? Our parents, our siblings, the society around us. But we don't have filters yet. So whether the reactions we're witnessing are super healthy or totally toxic, we just absorb them like a sponge. They're downloaded straight into our subconscious before we even know right from wrong.
Our source material uses a great example here: how kids watch cartoons. Since children don't have those mental security guards checking what comes into their brains, they can just as easily adopt the, let's say, reactive and annoying habits of a side character, like Nobita from Doraemon, as they could a heroic main character. They aren't analyzing the traits, they're literally just mirroring them. And obviously this happens in the real world too. The way your parents argued, or how a teacher disciplined you, those moments sneak right past the unguarded gates and become your default settings.
Okay, Section 2, the awakening, relearning behavior. Because what's really interesting is what happens when we finally grow up and our consciousness actually awakens. This is a really powerful concept. Imagine you're sitting in a movie theater, and suddenly the national anthem starts playing. A command is given, and boom, everyone has to stand at attention. The source suggests that the exact moment you gain true self-awareness, you basically have to force every single inherited habit to stand at attention. You have to audit them. You look at your gut reactions and ask yourself, wait, did I choose this or did I just inherit it?
And that brings us to relearning. Now, relearning isn't about sitting down and memorizing something entirely new. No, it's this meticulous process of filtering. It's a conscious audit. You're looking at your own behaviors and asking, does getting defensive instantly actually serve me? Or is holding this grudge ruining my relationships? You keep what works, and you intentionally throw out those toxic autopilot reactions.
Because honestly, if we don't do this relearning, our unresolved behaviors act exactly like a hijacker. Imagine you're flying the plane of your life, right? Everything's fine, and then suddenly an unconscious trigger from your past breaks into the cockpit, grabs the controls, and forces you into a destructive tailspin. You yell at someone, you shut down completely, you make terrible choices, and later you're sitting there wondering, why on earth did I do that? Well, it's because the hijacker took over.
So how do we spot this hijacker? Application is absolutely crucial here. And the source gives us a simple 3-step daily journaling exercise. Every day, just record 5 unique events that happened to you and note exactly how you reacted. Do this for 7 days, that gives you 35 reactions. But here's the crazy part. You'll find a ton of duplicates. You'll probably realize you actually cycle through only about 20 core behaviors a week. Once they're written down on paper, you finally have the power to decide which ones stay and which ones go. Once you're aware, you get to choose your reactions. There's this brilliant anecdote from the source about this. Imagine you're in your office, and someone runs in to tell you a 4-year-old kid just threw a brick from a roof trying to knock down a mango, but he hit your car's windshield instead. Now the autopilot reaction? Absolute rage, right? But the relearned, conscious reaction is realizing, hey, a piece of glass is totally replaceable, but the emotional damage you'd inflict on a curious 4-year-old by screaming at them, that is permanent. We can literally choose not to lose our temper over replaceable things.
Let's move to Section 3, 7 behaviors of success. Once we clear out all that toxic junk, what are we actually replacing it with?
Instead of treating these as just a basic list of tips, I want you to think of these 7 behaviors as your conscious rebellion against those toxic autopilot responses we just talked about. They are forgiving unconditionally, being generous, distributing ease, being non-judgmental, being cooperative, learning before teaching, and staying goal-oriented. Let's zoom in on a couple of the most impactful ones.
Let's look at generosity. A lot of folks think generosity is something you wait to do until you're rich, right? Actually, it requires building capacity early.
The speaker in our source shares this amazing story about giving away his very first hard-earned 2,000 rupees when he was a student. He gave it to a woman who desperately needed surgery. Now, it had taken him 4 months to save that money. But giving it away when it was literally all he had, it permanently expanded his heart's capacity. Basically, if you don't build the capacity to be generous when you're broke, you definitely won't magically become generous when you hit the jackpot.
And this thought perfectly captures the third point on our list, distributing ease. This beautiful quote is a reminder that spending your energy finding ways to make life just a little bit easier for the people around you is the hallmark of a truly successful personality. It doesn't mean you have to make these grand, sweeping gestures. It's really about being the person who lowers the temperature in a tense room, offers a kind word, or just smooths the path for someone else.
Another super important behavior is recognizing the huge difference between just hearing advice and actually learning it. We hear a ton of things every day. Be patient, be polite, but that's just superficial knowledge. True learning, on the other hand, actually civilizes your lifestyle. It shows up in your actions. If you've genuinely learned something, it transforms how you interact with people. It doesn't just sit in your brain as some fun trivia fact.
Moving on to Section 4, focus on the variable factor. As we're relearning and adopting all these great new behaviors, we really need to know where to direct our energy so we don't just end up frustrated.
Here is the ultimate secret to peace. The world is basically divided into 2 factors. The variable factor is your own behavior, your own reactions, your own mindset. This is literally the only thing you have control over. The constant factor, that's other people's behavior. The biggest trap we fall into is exhausting all our energy trying to fix that constant factor, trying to change how your partner acts, what your boss thinks, how some random stranger drives. Just stop. Focus entirely on the variable factor. Focus on yourself.
Section 5, the ripple effect on families. Why does making this behavioral shift matter so profoundly? Well, it's not just about you. It's about the next generation. This isn't just self-help. It is a legacy building.
Unchecked behaviors do way more than just ruin your day. They create what the source calls a war in the blood for your children. When parents are constantly fighting, when a home is full of suspicion and friction, kids absorb all that chaos right past those unguarded gates we talked about earlier. It gets straight into their psychological bloodstream. They learn that yelling is totally normal, that trusting people is a weakness, and that every relationship is a battleground. Your unresolved behavior literally dictates whether the next generation grows up to build harmony or just perpetuate more chaos.
Section 6. Become a uniter, not a divider. This brings us to the ultimate emotional climax of this whole behavioral journey.
Ultimately, we have a choice. As the mystic Baba Farid so beautifully put it, we can choose to leave a legacy of joining people together rather than tearing them apart. Think about the people in your own life who act like scissors, always cutting, dividing, creating drama. Now think about the people who act like a needle and thread, constantly repairing things, connecting people, healing rifts. Relearning your behavior is exactly that. It's the conscious process of putting down the scissors and picking up the needle and thread. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on today. Take a really hard look at those 20 or so core behaviors you cycle through every week. Are they acting as scissors, or are they acting as a needle and thread? You have the consciousness now to make that choice. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparks a powerful audit of your own internal scripts. Keep learning, keep auditing, and I will see you next time.